The day was like any other hot summer day, and I loved it. Working outside can actually clear your head, especially after such a bad day I had yesterday. After all, they say sunlight fuels the soul. Yet, in just a moment, we're about to feel the change down through our souls. The ripple, as I call it, spread across the planet from where, I'm not sure. Some people think it might have came from CERN, their facility, or maybe from Antarctica, but no one knew what was going on as the entire world became distorted. At first, most of everyone thought that we moved up too quick, got up from the seat too quick, and the blood was rushing out of our brains as you just got dizzy and wanted to fall down, throw up, and crap yourself at the same time. That is, until the screaming started. Around the world, items, things, creatures, and even people started changing. They did this, yet there was no pain, as reality itself seemed to be warping around, changing. It mutated, and things changed into something else. I fell down in the yard, and I watched as one of my chickens began to grow. All the others freaked out and ran away. As I watched, even though I couldn't get off the ground, I saw it lose all its feathers. The wings stretched out into arms. The black and white feathers exposed the green skin as they fell to the ground. The wings that turned into arms, the legs were not chicken legs anymore, but actual legs. And before I knew it, there was a goblin inside the pen, crying. I tried to get up at that point, but the distortion kept me from taking more than a few steps before falling over and landing with a thud. Eventually, the vertigo began to subside, and I was able to get over to the pen. Opening it up, I slowly approached and looked at this little green-skinned girl. The look she gave me with those red eyes was that of, I don't know what else to say except fear. She pulled away from me a bit and began to examine her new body, raising her hands up, flexing them, moving them around, looking down at her legs, looking at her body. After some time, I simply sat there in a crouch and extended my hand, and eventually she very hesitantly took it. I tried to help her to her feet, but she kept falling, which wasn't good since she was in a chicken pen, which is covered in shit. Eventually, I just kind of got pissed off and reached over, picked her up, and carried her in my arms. Getting her back to the house, I cleaned her up a little bit and placed her on the sofa, and then I pulled out my phone. I had heard it chime, but I couldn't really use it. The message simply read, "Emergency calls only," across the top. I tried texting family and friends, but nothing went through at all. Something's wrong with the system. Whatever it is, they don't want the general population talking. With this, I left the little one on the couch as she just sat there curled up. I rushed over to get online. The Discord was going absolutely nuts, with everyone asking what the fuck was going on. The messages came in so fast that I just couldn't read them. It was impossible. I tried to ask if anyone else had seen strange things, and that is when I could hear the rumbling. Something was coming through the atmosphere, something big. I knew this rumbling. This was something coming down, but usually I'm used to artillery, but no. This not only made the sound, but actually shook the area. With a quick check on the little goblin friend who simply looked at me with concern, I ran out the door and looked around. Far off in the distance, I could see something massive. Being that I was kind of elevated up on this hill, I looked close, but I couldn't quite make it. The only thing I could see, it looked kind of like a slow-moving shit off in the distance. Running it back inside, I ran in and pulled out one of my rifles that had a scope on it. Then I ran back and looked over, and I believe I had gone insane at what I saw. It can't be what I think it is all that's going through my mind. I must be losing it. What the hell? The massive ship seemed to be turning, rotating its position, and lowering the rifle. I looked around the sky and noticed something else in my peripheral. Looking at it through the scope, all I could think is, what the fuck? A giant mechanical squid that was still seemingly flexing with some sort of energy as it slowly made its way towards the surface. It opened its legs, seemingly getting ready to land, and then turned itself towards the direction of the ship. I realized what the hell was about to happen. Before I could even turn, a piece of metal the size of a bus pierced through so fast that I could only see the distortion of the air, followed immediately by 3 more of these rounds that tore the squid to pieces. This odd mechanical fish now fell at terminal velocity to the ground. Even at this distance, I could hear the thud as it hit the ground and seemingly just exploded. After that, what I believed to be an Infinity-class ship seemed to turn in another direction and go away. Then I walked inside and I just shook. My brain had basically shut down because I was, in fact, in shock, mental shock. What I saw couldn't exist, right? I must still be delusional. This can't be real. What? That is until a mature-looking 3'1.5" green female grabbed my leg. I looked down, and she seemed concerned that I was just standing there. This actually brought me out of my stupor and realized that someone actually relies on me, and all my training immediately kicked in. I turned on the news channel, and they had absolutely no idea what the hell was going on, yet they seemed to actually perform some sort of damage control. I've seen enough of this crap to realize what they're doing. I immediately screamed out, "Screw this!" Then I immediately turned to my computer and pulled up every single live stream channel I could possibly think of, even using my own feed to try and figure out another one. Looking at each of the videos that was coming in all the way across my screen, I was in shock again, as now things that should not exist appeared. In the sky, I saw it up close. Sure enough, it was an Infinity-class ship. I looked on another screen. There was something. I couldn't understand it. And then I looked on the bottom and they said Tiger Claw. What the hell? Then I saw something I only remember seeing in another video game. A massive dreadnought. Then something looked like it came right out of 40K with that strange broadside cannon display they had. And even some square white pancake that I had seen somewhere else. Where the hell have I seen that? Each of these ships are duking it out with each other as the world's air forces are mobilizing. Most fell fast as they are not set up for actual realistic combat. The majority of the energy weapons turned out to be little more than a light show, although every once in a while you would have one that truly did its job. It was interesting to watch, but the main issue was actually happening on the surface. Creatures morphed from animals and humans. Things that seemed to come right out of the video games that I remember people used to play. I wasn't a big fan, but what the hell? On other screens, huge war machines rolled, rumbled, hovered, or even walked across the planet. A few I recognized, others I didn't. In most cases, they were firing on anyone they would find, anyone and anything. The chaos on the screen continued as the little green girl crawled up and sat in my lap looking at the screen. She seemed scared. She was trembling a little bit, so I wrapped my arm around her shoulder. I was captivated as seemingly every fantasy and science fiction game had actually come to life to varying degrees. Although since Earth was humanity's home planet, it only does stand to reason that they would all coalesce around this world. I was absolutely fixed on the computer until the little girl, this goblin, noticed something in the backyard. Another mystical creature was walking across the backyard. I immediately turned and looked, and I wasn't sure what the hell I was looking at. Was it a person of unnatural color? A tiefling? A dragonoid? Maybe an elf? I don't know. When I stood up, I must have moved enough that it saw me, and it immediately bolted into the tree line and disappeared. The goblin I was holding clenched my shirt so tight that she actually began to pull out some body hair. Not fun. I would have been scared too, but that's when I noticed something on the screen. Another distortion rippled across the world. I could see it on different live streams as it went through and past the camera, and the goblin saw this and held on to me like a child as the distortion passed over us. I expected her to change back to what she was, and change she did. She seemed to mature in front of my eyes instead of just this tiny little weak thing. It might be about the age of, I don't know, 5. She grew another 1 to 2 inches, but that was about it, as many parts of me began to scream in pain. I have fairly large pain tolerance, but this, I'll admit, made tears come out. I looked at the goblin and I was surprised what I saw. Around the world, most of the ships, mechanical devices, and personnel just simply disappeared off in the ether. Either they changed back or they just disintegrated back into nothing. I didn't know what was going on. Nobody could actually make sense of what in the hell just happened. And that's when the video started showing what remained. I watched as fantasy creatures began to emerge. Humans and animals began to change at a rate of 40% of the population around the world. I worried that I would change, but as the pain subdued, I took a deep breath of relief as I looked and realized that I was still me. The fighting seemed to stop all of a sudden around the world as most of the creatures either ran off into the woods or simply surrendered without a fight. I noticed that the woman in my arms, and she looked up to me and smiled, and then said, "Hello." After a few moments of contemplation, I got up and introduced myself. She obviously didn't have a name, so I called her Ruby because of her red eyes. We only talked for a moment before I got up to check the house. She followed me around, basically clenched onto me, and I quickly made sure she wore one of my t-shirts, as the last thing I need is somebody sitting there knocking on my door, yell, "FBI, open up!" When we went outside, I could see that there was another one in the pen. Immediately, I rushed over to get her, and this one could speak immediately. She must have been hit with a double distortion or something. Her green eyes looked up at me through her blonde hair. I was actually surprised at this, since Ruby's hair is black. I mean, jet black. Immediately, I picked her up, not even caring about any type of, being nice or anything, and brought them both inside. As I immediately got them both cleaned up, got some clothes, and got some food in them, we all sat down to figure out what the hell had happened. I looked on everything that I could find, and everyone speculated what the answer would be. What the true answer was would change our understanding of almost everything. Hello, everybody. This is Syntax. Thank you so much for joining me on today's chapter. Before I go, I gotta send a quick thank you to one of my supporters, Wildcat YT. Thank you very much for supporting the channel. Everyone else, I'll see you on the next one. This is Syntax, ejecting.